On this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds, we discuss how to demonstrate your product. We talk about gathering fan feedback, the differences between disclosing features and solutions, overcoming project fatigue, and much more. Let's jump in.
Game begin.
Let's go.
I used to be a marketer like you until I took an arrow to the knee.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another awesome episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. I'm your host, Andrew Lowen, and I'm joined as always by Sean. And on this episode, we're going to talk about demonstrating your product. In particular, we have a product that we're going to be selling here soon. And, this course, our podcast is all about firsthand case studies. And that includes our own stuff. Like when we're trying to sell or we're trying to, gear up for selling something, it just is, it behooves us to just open up maybe a behind the scenes view so that you guys can see us struggle with, trying to sell something or demonstrate something as well. And, I'm personally a board game publisher, so I've done this a couple of times on Kickstarter, for my own projects, but every single one of our clients has to endure the same set of challenges, which is how do you demonstrate your product in a way that makes somebody want it? How do you talk about it in a way that makes somebody interested? And so that's kind of where we're at right now with our Crowdfunding Nerds Academy courses. We're putting together the marketing and other things like that. We're about to start running ads and we've set up our funnel where for people that can go from Facebook ads to our landing page, learn about the courses, and then the landing page needs to convince them that it's a good idea to sign up or to join the wait list is what it is right now. We're going to send people some information when they're on the wait list, and then we're going to open our courses for, with like a really great discount and all of that. But if you don't build value into what it is that you're selling, then it doesn't matter what price you're selling it for. It's too much. If I'm not compelled to buy it at any price, then you've failed in your demonstration of your product. So that's really why this episode is probably, I would say, one of the most important lessons that we can teach. And so, I guess I've framed it as best I can. What do you think, Sean? Where do you want to begin with demonstrating the product, or you have thoughts first?
Well, maybe we could talk about being too familiar with the project, because that often helps. You really suffer from this when you're so close to the project, because you think you're thinking about it so much, you fail to be able to have a fresh perspective on it, and you take certain things for granted. And I think that's one of the problems that you have to sort of become aware of. Particularly me, I feel like I'm maybe the most familiar, because I've cut the course. I've had to record things and edit it and rewatch and re-upload. So I feel like I'm beyond knowledgeable of everything that's in the course. So it becomes very difficult to kind of get all that information that I have and to really make it into something quite succinct. So I think that's part of the problem as well here, is when you're very close to the project. So it's helpful to have partners, have other people come in and to have a fresh perspective. So yourself and Jacob and other people on our team has been very helpful for myself, from being able to kind of approach this at a different perspective.
Yeah, it's funny because in a way the roles are reversed, where I when I started with Deliverance, I was that guy that knew every single thing about the project, and when it came time to do the marketing, I struggled so hard. Like back in like 2021, when we went to Kickstarter for the first time, it was so hard to actually run ads, and eventually it was the biggest breath of fresh air was to hand the ads to you and be like, all right, Sean, you do it. And what was the experience like then? I mean, it was just, in essence, I was just kind of another one of the clients of the company at that point, right? Was it pretty, I mean, you came up with lots of things that I would never have thought of, and some of them have become like our core ad concepts to even to this day with that intellectual property. The Angelic Warfare board game is that became a thing because of the work that you did, not because of anything that I did at all. I knew it was the Angelic Warfare board game. I just didn't really know where to go. I mean, I felt like I knew every single thing there was to know about the project, and like you said, it's very difficult to turn every single thing that you know about a project into a slogan that's 5 words.
Yes, and I think you had obviously done a lot of play testing. You got a lot of user feedback, so I think that had impacted your ability to market it because you were kind of marketing it with almost like your defenses up because you're so used to getting certain feedback that I think you were sort of presupposing those kind of criticisms in the marketing. Whilst I could come with a fresh perspective without any of that kind of baggage, so to speak, and just be like, oh, well, this is what it is, and here's a
Mhm.
simpler way of getting there. Or I didn't think that's as a concern as so much for a broader audience. Maybe it's in a very specific audience that has certain concerns. So I think by having that less of of that information, that
Mhm.
of knowing that information, it kind of allowed me to experiment more with different avenues of marketing, messaging, and even targeting. You know, we tried some really kind of harebrained targeting things. Like we targeted people who are interested in Doom because it's like Doom guy slaying demons.
Mhm.
Like, okay, well, there's sort of an overlap here in themes, so let's try that. And we tried all these different like heavy metal music, and because I don't know, maybe it's a bit heavier in
Mhm.
terms of its themes and messaging and things. So all these different things we tried and experimented with, and some of it was good, some of it fell flat. So I think that's all part of the advantages of coming to something with a fresh pair of eyes and a clean slate.
So the first bit of advice is to find somebody that has some marketing chops that can look at it from an outside perspective and suggest whatever the project is that you're working on, that they can see like what stands out to them. Is that like kind of the first bit of advice?
Yeah, well, I think
Distill
even
down.
something like our crowdfunding nerds community on Facebook is a great place to just post something like post your landing page, post an ad that you're thinking of, and ask for feedback. And that's
Hmm.
a good starting place, and it's free, right? So you
Yeah.
don't have to pay anything to join that group or anything to be a part of that. So that's probably a good place to do because you're going to get a lot of opinions, and they don't have any financial investment to tell you X or Y or anything. They're just
Hmm.
going to give you their honest opinion, hopefully. So that's probably a good place to just get it from your peers, get it from other people in the industry. It's a good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah. I also think like if you're gonna do it yourself, that's really where when you do have social media that you can use and you can ask for feedback and things like that can be hit or miss sometimes where sometimes you get excellent people. I actually find the crowdfunding nerds community is pretty quality as far as responses that you'll get. There are people that are very thoughtful in their responses, which I really like. Everybody, it seems, in that group is just like a student of marketing and trying to market their whatever their project is, but they're kind of studying this stuff, which is cool. And so if let's say I don't have the money to hire an agency, like obviously had the money to employ you, and no, you're the guy for deliverance ads and stuff. But and many our clients obviously employ us to do this for them. Um, to find one person that's willing to give you advice, that's willing to look at your project, just somebody with publishing experience that has experience either publishing or marketing another published product, they can help you with some of the questions that you have, and a lot of the time people will give you free advice, and they'll kind of help you with what they think stands out about your product. And I think that's really the key to figure out what are the in business you'd call them sustained competitive advantages, the things that your business does better than other businesses, or your core competencies. But in with a product, it's like, what is the hook of your product? That's usually how it's described. What's the thing that makes your game stand out from everyone else's game? What is and there's the thing that you think makes it stand out. Like, oh, it's infinitely replayable and highly strategic. It's like that is not something that causes a game to stand out. It may be, but it may not be. And how will I know, as a consumer that digests hundreds of games in a year that are all highly strategic and infinitely replayable? It's like I don't have infinite time. And anyway, but what really stands out about your product. It's not that everybody likes it. It's not that it's a party game that plays up to 9,000 players. We have to figure out like what is the thing that is going to hook me to go from like, oh, this is interesting to like, I must have this, and like a great example of a cop out with our courses that I think totally doesn't work, even though it's true, is our courses will make you more money than you spend on them. Of course they will, because that's why they exist. Like we literally have courses teaching you how to use Facebook ads, teaching you how to do email marketing, teaching you how to like design your Kickstarter page. And those things will help you. They will directly one-to-one correlation to making more money. If you do those three things better, you will make more money. But that's not going to be a reason that somebody is actually hooked into buying the courses. That's I think a benefit of the courses, but like why would somebody actually purchase a like a course on email marketing, for example? It's not. I think that if I say, well, you're going to make more money, then I think that's almost like it's like a snake oil salesman would say something like that. And that is something that we will typically mistrust someone that says, well, you're going to make more money from this as the very first thing. It's like, it may be true, which on the other side of that same coin, it may not be true. Right. And so
Mm-hmm.
how do I know what is what? And so it's really like the effect of doing what is in the course. If you apply the lessons learned in the course, you'll make money. But the reason that you would take a course about email marketing is so that you can increase your open rates to above 50%, so that you can get your people opening and reading your stuff and passionately engage with you as a company. And if you have passionate fans that are super duper excited about what it is that you're sharing, because you've learned about how to write content that people like, how to write a subject line that makes people want to open, how to make people appreciate the content that you send to them, how to get people to look forward to your content every single month, then the side effect of that is that you're going to have a passionate fan base that backs the project that you're working on, and that's why you'll make more money. And so it's I think that the reason that somebody would buy like an email marketing course, for example, is because it will educate them to basically be uh, a better steward of their fans, a better, they'll be able to treat their community in a way that is memorable, that is appreciated, and that is reciprocated with loyalty. And so that would be more of like why an actual hook that would get people to probably grab an email marketing course. And so I think part of the hook, deciding what like the why would people buy this, it's really, if it's a product, if you're going to Kickstarter or Game Found with a product, you are trying to figure out like why would they, it's typically, our business is mostly tabletop products. So you're going to Kickstarter or Game Found with a game. In fact, we had two games launched that are both sci-fi. One launched on Game Found, Earth Under Siege, and then another one launched on Kickstarter this week, Terminus Frontier, and both are smashing it, and they're very very unique in their own their own ways, and they I just think that they did a really good job demonstrating what the actual thing was. But so it doesn't really matter where you go. You can be successfully funded on any platform as long as you have a dedicated user base that knows why they are interested in this product. And so maybe, the real key is figuring out what hooks the right people in, and like who are the right people and what causes those people to get interested are kind of like number one and two. That's not such an easy thing to solve. It kind of harkens back to the question, who is your target market? How do you define your target market? What is a target market, right?
Well, I think it also comes back to this idea of getting feedback. We talked about getting feedback from industry folks, people who are in the industry, but it's also worthwhile to get feedback from your fans, your community, and this is why having this pre-launch community before you go to Kickstarter or GameFound is so integral, because it helps you shape the product before you even get to the crowdfunding event.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this is something we try with Deliverance. I think we asked them to suggest catchphrases for the game, and they were all garbage. But what it did highlight was what people think of the game, and it kind of steered us towards something that was maybe a bit more appropriate. But
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of them were just super long. It's like, yeah, you can't use this as a catchphrase. But it did highlight what people, when they think of Deliverance in their mind, what makes it valuable to them, and that certainly was very helpful and interesting. So I think those are the two areas like as I said on a past episode about The Hobbit, where the publisher had the draft of The Hobbit read by his son. He paid his son a shilling to read The Hobbit because it's a children's book. You get children.
Mm-hmm.
If children are your demographic, then you get children to review. And does the child like it? Yes, children like it. It was appropriate for this child. So we'll then move into the next round of approvals for the publishing. So it's the same. Like if your demographic is a certain type of gamer, and you have those gamers in your community, or you know where they go, where they congregate online or in person, then going there and saying, hey, give me your feedback on this is a great place to at least start.
Yeah, and you're going to get different kinds of feedback when it's not we'll call it like an industry professional person, either a publisher, marketer, whatever. When it's just simply a fan that wants to play your game or wants to play games like that, it's really, really going to be different feedback. In fact, sometimes it can be the opposite from what an industry professional would say, because a lot of the time, industry professionals, and this is why this podcast exists, industry professionals like to talk theoretically rather than like an actual first world tangible example of something that really happened. Theory is so popular to discuss among industry professionals to other industry professionals. Like, you should do this, you should do that, but I like, why in my case should I do this or do that? Whereas and they're going to tell you, you should have a Facebook group and an email list and run ads on
Or
Facebook
in
and
an ideal world, this is what
yeah,
would happen. But in practicalities, that's not how it happens.
right. But then the fans don't talk in terms of theory; they talk in terms of like what they like and what they don't like. So they'll be able to identify problems, and which is why you want to play test games with your
Mhm.
fans, with people who would like your product. If you have a party game and you're playing with somebody like me who hates party games and only likes massive cooperative adventures and whatnot, I might not give you great feedback. I might be like, oh, this game's too short and it didn't feel very deep and whatever. But if you get the right fan, they're going to be like, this is fun, I'd want to play again. Or they might say, and they might give you critical feedback, which is like, it felt fun, but there was this one thing that kind of ruined it for me. And you'll hear from gamers about like that there are problems that exist. They'll also give you solutions that they think are the solutions to that will fix the problem, that are usually never the right implementation. You never want to implement the solution that a player will give you, because they don't have all the pieces like you do. But if they can identify a problem, then you can say, well, it looks like the strategy they employed, they were kind of pigeonholed into doing that because this one resource was worth a little too much, and they were able to use that action over and over again. And that's why they felt like, the one person really loved the game because they beat everyone else by 150 points. But everyone else felt like they couldn't do anything or they weren't having fun because the one guy got too far ahead. So something as simple as like identifying a problem, that can be so helpful. But your gamer, the actual player base, your target market will be able to tell you when they like something and what in particular they like about it. I still remember when Sam Healy took Deliverance, and he said, he really liked that all the actions that you could take on the play or were listed on the player board. They were just right in front of him, and he looked down and he said, well, I really like that all the things I can do are right here. And I realized that's something that I kind of took for granted. Like you said earlier, I couldn't see the forest through the trees. I was so close that I didn't notice the game is very easy to pick up because all the instructions are in front of you. You don't have to remember anything from the rule book and whatever. And from that moment on, it became something that I started to tell other people that they started to notice and appreciate, because I would tell them, oh, all the things you do are on this card. You don't have to remember anything else. And then all of a sudden, somebody that was intimidated was no longer intimidated. It's like, okay, all the things I have to remember are just on this card. That's very easy. So even though there are lots of cards flying left, right, and center, the only thing they needed to remember was right in front of them. And so it enabled people that, would have been too intimidated otherwise to actually play. And it became a core piece of our marketing, that, for really up all the way until this day. So, um, so to demonstrate the product, this is, I think, a difficult thing. So it helps to understand who your target market is and what it is that they want to see that is awesome about the product. So, using the concept of a game, what makes it interesting? What, like, I don't know, I feel like House Atreides on Arrakis fighting against whatever, in Dune. um, that can be a pretty fun experience that I would like to play. But in general, by the way, experiences, I think, are the things that hook people. It's like you are this thematic thing, so the theme is really important, that is doing something that matters in this world, that is, of this board game or whatever. I think those things are good hooks. They start to hook people and drag them into your world where they want to have that experience. So I guess the first thing about a good demonstration is it conveys an experience that the player wants to have. I think that a good testimonial does the same thing. It's like if somebody says, "Oh, I used Crowdfunding Nerds and I made a bunch of money, and I'm so happy that I can't wait to use them for my next project." And if they give specific details about what happened, then it's going to make somebody look and say, "Why, yes, I have a game coming up. I want that experience too. I want those same results. I want that same experience that you had. So I want to use the people that you used." And that's how we get probably 50% of our business is like customers referring other customers because they had a good experience. And then the person coming in is like, "I've heard about you guys. You did a good work for, X, Y, and Z company. And now I'm gonna give you a shot." It's not just because, we have a track record or whatever. It's because were they had an experience personally related to them from somebody that they trust, and they
Mm.
decided that they want that same experience too. So whatever the methodology we use doesn't matter. It's the results and the experience that the other person got, they want replicated for them. So the methodology matters a lot, because if we just, threw, put a blindfold on and threw darts at a dartboard and hit the magic, center of the dartboard, it would be very hard to replicate. But because we have a system we can replicate, it adds. So people tend to make an emotional decision and say, that experience that you just described to me was incredible. I want to have that same experience. So that's why people go to Disneyland. It's like I went to Disneyland and I got to go to Tom Sawyer Island and chase my kids around, and it was super fun. And I can make that sound so fun that you're going to want to go there and, chase your kids around Tom Sawyer Island or whatever. And it's just the way that we naturally are as humans. But that's not a logical thing. That's an emotional thing. Like I'm kind of appealing to your emotion by saying, like, wouldn't it be fun to have this great experience with your family, like I did? And then the logic that I give you after that will begin to justify the emotional desire that you've made. It's like, okay, and you can go, like, you save money by going to the Denny's right outside Disneyland. We're talking about in Anaheim, California. You go to the Denny's right outside there and get a meal for real cheap, and then you play as long and hard as you can. You avoid getting any food in Disneyland because it's going to cost you like $35 a plate at least. Dude, a
Yeah.
chocolate covered strawberry was $11 the last time I went to Disneyland. It
Yeah.
was wild.
Yeah, I've seen these like TikToks and like shorts of people going and like buying merchandise and like they go to the register. It looks like it's about $20 worth of stuff. It's like $400. Like what? What's
Dude,
happening here?
I remember
Oh.
back in the day I would go to Disneyland as a kid. Total aside, but I remember they had this all these cool like wizards with crystal balls and like a crystal dragon on top of a castle and stuff like that. I just wanted those things so bad. I thought they were so cool every time I would go. They were like $600 and $200 for like the little wizard and whatever. It was like completely out of my like well beyond my what I could afford as just a little kid. But it was so cool looking. It's like, oh man.
Well, like here in the UK, we went to a place called Wedgwood, and it's this historical China making facility. It's actually the Wedgwood family actually related to Charles Darwin, so like they have this huge history and it's this massive thing. So foolishly, I took my mother-in-law there because she was coming over, and it was just a nice thing to do with her. Our son had just been born, so he's like a little toddler. The worst place to bring a toddler.
Oh my goodness.
Because you go up to this table, it just looks like China, and it's already brittle stuff, and it's like, oh, this looks nice, and then you look at the price tag, and it's like £1,500 for like this tea set. Like, oh my goodness, don't touch anything.
Your kid's grabbing the leg of the
exactly.
of
I was
the
like,
table.
I could not rest. I was like sweating the entire time because everything in this place is very brittle. I've got a little energetic child, and it's all very expensive. So yeah, I understand that.
So
You
funny.
don't understand the value of something. It's like, oh yeah, that, like I'm completely ignorant when it comes to the value of tea sets. So I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I paid maybe £50 for that tea set. It's nice, and then oh wow, that is
Yeah.
very expensive.
Yeah, that's so funny. You know, you're obviously not the target market for that China shop.
No, I'm not. I'd easily be fooled or swindled.
Yeah. So, you know, going back to this concept of the demonstration, it's really so the job is number one, we have to figure out what makes a product stand out, what the actual reasons that somebody would want to buy. And you're not going to be perfect here. You know, the concept is like you're never going to bat 1,000, or you're never going to it's never going to be perfect. What you have to do is you have to make your best case. The best case that you know how to make, that's your job, is to make the best case for it. Don't try to like convince me. Just give me present me the facts and let me as a customer decide if it's, you know, so don't tell me it's revolutionary. Don't tell me it's infinitely replayable. Don't tell me it's highly strategic. Tell me that it's you know, you play, I don't know, for deliverance, you play angels and demons, or you know, angels fighting demons and protecting saints. So I'll say, okay, that's thematically distinct from any other game that I have on my shelf right now, and I as the customer have made that connection. So you know, you can play you know, any one of let's say 15, or well, I guess we have like 18 different angels now, and each angel has their own set of talents that combine into, you know, 125 different combinations, and it feels very, you know, thematically distinct from one another. So it's like, okay, so I have 18 characters and a massive amount of replayability with each character. So to me, the game is now infinitely replayable, but I didn't have to say that. I was simply able to kind of make a case based on the facts of the game and then let the customer decide, right? And so that's kind of what we're trying to do. So like for the email marketing course, we actually, I mean, we have 3 courses. We have our Facebook ads for Kickstarter course, we've got the Kickstarter page optimization, and then the email marketing course that are and the Facebook ads course we released you know, I guess it's been out for about 2 years, but the other 2 we're coming out with, and we're
We did
doing a
update.
bundle. And oh yeah, we did update the Facebook ads for Kickstarter. So okay, so just kind of picking on the email marketing course because it's there. So like, so if you guys go to crowdfundingnerds.com/academy, you'll get to this page, and you know, you scroll down a little bit, you'll see these 3 boxes, you know, which look like game boxes, but they're kind of our course boxes. So the email marketing course, it talks about, in this course you will learn, you know, there's this
And before you
section.
jump there, the reason we use course boxes is because we, from studying our ads for 2024, the highest grossing ads all had game boxes. So like, okay, there's something about having a 3-dimensional box that really it resonates with folks. So that's why we decided to represent these digital courses with 3D boxes, just so
Yeah,
people know.
that's true. It's a good point. So the the short description is you need a crowd to fund your project, and email is the number one way to communicate with your customers, even in 2025. And so that's our short description for the course. And then in this course, you will learn, the various pieces of of this. Like, it's not the specifics; it's what benefit to you absorbing the information of the specifics will be. Like, we listed fundamentals of email marketing, benchmarks for email success, how to craft an email capture page, what your fans want to read, how to get 50% plus open rates, how to automate your email marketing, how to reduce unsubscribes, how to get 10 to 30% backer conversion, and more. So each one of those things, we're trying to make the absolute best case for why you should consider this as something to purchase, really. And so each one of the bullet points need to like be it,
Main
we're
point.
trying to make a case for buying it with every single one of those. So if one fails, then it's potentially something the customer latches onto and is like, oh well, I don't need to reduce unsubscribers, or whatever. If that was not a compelling bullet point, then it would actually hurt us. So
Yeah, I really think
um,
there's two questions that people are asking when they're encountering anything that's new, whether it's a game on Kickstarter or GameFound, or whether it's our course. They're going to ask, what is this? So you have to be able to define that very quickly and demonstrate that very quickly what it is and answer that question. And then the second thing is, does it work? So, and the
mhm,
idea of the game, as you said, the experience is, does the experience work? What you're promising me? What you're promising me, does it work? Is it fun? Do I actually play
mhm,
as these characters, and do I do these things? And then in our case, it's, does it work? Are we actually able to deliver? And this is where I think that social proof comes in to demonstrate, yes, it does work, because
mhm.
here's a third party who's used the product or used the service, and they have testified that yes, indeed, it does work. So this is what kind of like the two-edged sword of what you're doing here, is that you're presenting the solutions that your product or service addresses, and then you're backing that up with verification through the use of third parties.
Yep. Yeah, and then in addition to that, I think another thing that is very, very important for me. So, social proof. Actually, I don't want to skip over what you just said. It's super important. Social proof is somebody is I'm not saying it's good. Other people are saying it's good. So, whereas you may not, and we kind of on our academy page, we lead heavily with me and my face, my name. I'm kind of like trying to say, my name is Andrew Lowen. I've helped raise $30 million plus for tabletop campaigns. I have generated $100 million plus through e-commerce sales. My courses teach you to replicate my results, and we're kind of making it about me as like the face of these courses, um, just to add some like human element. But the thing that I think really will drive it home is not, there's some people who know me, you guys listening to my voice, like you obviously know, you trust our expertise at some level because you're listening to our podcast. But right below that, we're listing like a partial client list of big names, um and we're including um like quotes from others, and we're actually gathering quotes. We want to gather them from big names and quotes that kind of say the right things. Like we have Andy from Trapbound Studio. He said, Crowdfunding Nerds single-handedly taught me how to market my board game. That is a really strong testimonial. Like, no matter who that's from, that's a very strong testimonial that if we can teach him, we can teach you, is the idea, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so third party credibility is so important. And for a game that's hitting Kickstarter or GameFound, you're definitely going to need third party credibility. It's just called reviewers. Like
Mm-hmm.
when we when we're talking about, oh, you need third party credibility, what we're really saying for you as a client that is going to Kickstarter with a product, with a board game, like you need to get reviewers, because if you don't, then people are gonna not believe that you say it's good. They'll believe others.
It could also simply be Board Game Geek reviews, could be user reviews, doesn't necessarily have to be, professional, high quality. If you got enough users saying the same thing, that it's okay, clearly it's not your family members, it's clearly not just your friends. These are random strangers or people who've played the game and are giving their honest feedback, then certainly use those. It works for Steam, right? This the whole Steam review system is based on this concept.
Yeah, yeah, and exactly. I think that the more compelling case, like first of all, like go try to get the Pope to review your product, and if the Pope is like, I bless this product in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit or whatever, like you'll win some fans, like you'll get a lot, I don't know, but you're probably not going to have the Pope do it. So use a reviewer instead, right? I don't know. I'm just coming up with like a guy that generally most people think is kind of a big deal. Um, in your niche, like go talk to Rado, go talk to Alex Radcliffe of Board Game Co. Go talk to, I don't know, Jesse Anderson of Quackalope, or find, the Shut Up and Sit Down guys, or even small reviewers with, I don't know, 300 to 500 subscribers, somebody that is willing to do it for free, that will create content for you and that you can then share. For me, I find for Deliverance, the co-op channels are really, really important. So like Colin Degnan of he used to be with One Stop Co-op Shop. He's now with Meet Me at the Table. Um, he's been a huge resource for me in marketing my games, because he's just super duper entertaining with his content, and he's been a really great partner for me. So like that third party credibility, I have been able to convince hundreds of people that my game is worth a try, because those backers they watch video content and decide the game looks fun, the game looks interesting, they want the experience that the reviewer showed them, and it's worth a go. How many times have you heard about this, where like I don't know if you've backed games, but where you later get kind of disheartened, like you hear a bad review about a game that you just paid $50 or $100 for, and you finally receive in the mail, or you're about to receive in the mail, but then you get like someone just that you don't even know, someone on social media says, oh, this game, I didn't like it, and then you're like, oh, I don't know if I should. It arrives and then you just don't open it. Has that ever
Mhm.
happened to you?
Yeah. Yeah,
Dude,
certainly, where it's just like, oh gosh. 'Cause I suppose the one thing with board games is that there's a lot of upfront investment in terms of time. You have to read a rule book, you have to study it,
Mhm.
you have to understand it, then you got to set it up and play. So people want to go through all that process if the game is subpar or if there's a glaring flaw in it. So I think this is why the review culture in board games is so important, is because
Yep.
people don't want to waste their time. Like I don't want to spend, basically the equivalent of reading a book, right? Because I don't just have to read it, I have to
Right.
understand it, I have to comprehend it, and then get it to the table, play it several times to make sure I've got like the rules right and like I actually
Yep.
understand what's happening. Or for it to be disappointing in the end, no thanks. I'm
Yeah.
just going to watch a review and get some thoughts. So, and this is why it's
Right.
so important in this industry.
Yeah, yeah. I find that a lot of people think that you're actually all you need to do is convince a backer to jump from your email list and back the game, and that's not the case at all. Like if you think long term, that's like a step in the process. But what you really need is you really need people to purchase the game and open it up and play it. Because if you get, I don't know, 5,000 backers, and then only a small percentage of them ever actually open the game and experience the content, I think that it's a really, really sad thing. I one of my favorite games is the Isofarian Guard by Sky Kingdom Games, and they were actually our very first client that I ever took on back in 2019, and then they did a reprint campaign in I guess like about a year and a half ago, and they raised like $1 million in that reprint campaign, and they've had, I want to say, probably about 10,000 backers over the course of those two campaigns, and the game is massive. It's like a really large game. It feels just like Skyrim, a very open world adventure. like Breath of the Wild style. It's very, very robust, and and I've actually played. It's been on my. I have a board game table, and it's been on my table underneath the. You can take off the top of the table, and then there it is, Ice Guard. It's been there for probably like 2 years since I originally received the game, and I've enjoyed that thing. Whenever we can get in there, I just like jump in for a couple of rounds and then farm some materials and fight some dudes. And and actually we started to write down what it is that we're doing, what goal we were working on, so that we can, when we come back, yeah, it's like I come back like 1 or 2 weeks later, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's right, I need to get that armor or whatever. So it's so awesome. But I am like about halfway through the game now, and I've put maybe 150 to 300 hours into the game, right? 300 might be too much, but a lot of hours. And it's such a massive game that I have yet to experience more than half the content. Like, after you kind of quote unquote beat the game, you get to go through a final chapter, which has all of these cards that are like, do not open these cards until instructed. It's like all of this meat at the very end of the game, and I'm not yet able to, that I may never, in fact, experience. But there are people that have purchased that game that when they got it, they're like, oh wow, this is big. And they heard somebody say, oh, it's very like it's what do they call it when it's just like repetitive? There you go. Oh, this is just super repetitive, it's super grindy, it's boring because of that. And they spend hundreds of dollars on this thing, and they hear somebody say that it's grindy or boring or whatever, and they don't even open the box. And it's this massive, like 2 square foot cube inside their house that weighs 40 pounds that they are too sad to open because they heard that it was bad. And I think that it's really unfortunate when this happens for a company. I'm not saying that this is the case for this company. I actually think it's one of the highest rated games on Board Game Geek right now. It's like a 8.9 or something on BGG rated. But the challenge is really, like, to kind of circle back to what I was originally getting at. The challenge is getting people to open the box and actually play. So what you need to do is you need to keep them on the hook all through the entire process. So everything that we're doing from a bird's eye view, from the very first time they see a Facebook ad, to jumping in to go reading information on your landing page, jumping into your, subscribing to your email marketing campaign, and the emails that you send to them, the page that you show them when your Kickstarter is live, all the way to like the updates that you write after your Kickstarter is done, like after your Kickstarter is fulfilled, the reviewers that share information. It's all to get them to see this experience is good enough that they should open the box and give it a go. And when they finally have a hands-on experience with the product, they're going to like it. If they just get to spend time with the product, the vast majority of the people who backed, they backed for a reason. It wasn't like, they were ignorant when they read all that information and then made a decision to back. But the longevity of your company is based on how many people you can get to actually play. Because now, like, for example, with Deliverance, we sold 5,000 games originally from the first Kickstarter. That's how many we made, and we sold out. And now the next Kickstarter happened, and the same types of objections come up. You've got stuff like people making fun of the game because there's a movie that came out in like 1969 by the same name. And yeah, and then there are others that make fun of it because it's a Christian thing, so it's probably terrible and super preachy and cringy and some ripoff of some other existing better product or whatever. And the difference that I have now is that I have 5,000 people, the vast majority of whom have actually opened the box and played several games at least. Some have played hundreds of games, but a massive for if you call 5,000 massive, but a large user base of players that can contest all of those people when when those objections arise. And whether that's on social media or like as from friend to friend as a recommendation, I have an army of compassionate super fans that are that have an actual experience with the product that can relay that in a positive way to whoever it is. Plenty of atheists are like, "Oh, I'm not a Christian and I loved this game and it was super awesome and it didn't try to convert me or whatever." Like if that was a concern, or but that's because we've been able to get people from like the very beginning to become interested in the product all the way to the very end where they actually use it. And I think our course is the same thing. Like if you buy the course, that's really kind of like the first key is like I've got to get people to like to buy it, because if they don't buy it, then I don't make any money and I have to go find something else to do. But then if they don't use it, they're not going to have much to say about it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
in the end, like they're not going to benefit, but over the long term neither am I, because I want, like, I envision to make these courses something that we can sell regularly throughout the year, which by the way, if you're listening to this, like we're giving people the biggest discount we're ever giving ever on these courses. It's like 67% off and
For the
unlimited
launch. Yeah.
lifetime updates. Yeah, only for 1 week. And I think we're going to make that week like maybe the first week of March. Um, it just depends on how we're doing, but it's definitely going to be in the month of March for 1 week. We're going to give people the ability to buy in. And for all those of you that have purchased our first course, we're going to give you guys a special discount so that you can get in on, all the new stuff and, take advantage of good pricing and whatnot. But yeah, so the idea is that I need people to actually take this course and to look at all of the, like the email marketing. We actually on the crowdfundingnerds.com/academy page, there's a button where you can hit preview for free. So you hit that button, it actually takes you to the course, and it gives you the very first video of each course. So there are certain things that are like, a lot of things are locked, but you can see, first of all, you can listen to me talk about, the email marketing one, for example, is about 15 minutes of what you will learn in this course, and a little description below about the key lesson concepts that you've written up, Sean. But then you get to see on the left-hand side, like what all of the modules are and how long they are. So, like, you've got why email, fundamentals of email marketing, which email provider to use, crafting email capture page, your optimal email schedule, mastering the subject line case study, a subject line workshop, email content, like what should I write, how to segment, how to automate, and RSS, and all of that is about 4 hours of content that is really, really packed with information. But man, that's 4 hours of your life that you're gonna have to give up to absorb this. And if we get people to like stop at, I don't know, fundamentals of email marketing, like the second video in, it's just they're not going to be excited to recommend, because they're not going to have absorbed the information. They're not going to have mastered their subject line writing. They're not going to have read the, all about, or listen to like why they should write what they write in for content, and they're just not going to get results. So they're not going to talk about it. They might not talk trash on it if they just didn't do it, but it's really up to us to make sure that we give people as many reasons to move forward as possible with this
I think this
content.
is where the difference of features and solutions, because we could stress, oh, you could learn this all in only 4 hours, but that's a feature. It's not actually a solution. At the end of the day, it doesn't really matter how long it is, as long as you're getting the value and the promise is secured. So that's something that we have to play around to work with. Maybe one thing I'd like
Right.
to, maybe as we come to a landing, is cover is like fatigue or project fatigue. Have you ever experienced this with Deliverance? Because when you're working on it and your brain is constantly in that space, do you ever find it's just very difficult to come up or even start generating thoughts, ideas about things moving forward? Because I certainly felt that with this course, if I'm going to be honest, because been working on it. It's pretty much governed all my thinking for the past, I don't know, couple of months. So when it comes to like now near the end where we have to start marketing it, coming up with ad copy and stuff, it's like my well is dry. I'm kind of like scraping the bottom here. Like, I don't know how. So it's been very helpful to kind of bounce ideas off yourself and Jacob. But have you experienced fatigue with Deliverance or any other project that you've spent a lot of time on?
Yeah, definitely. And I would say that you start to kind of all the lines begin to blur as far as what is a true hook of your product versus like what is just information that your product conveys. So there's a difference between like what you want your customer to experience and what the customer's looking for. So that's a really important distinction. But what you want your customer to experience, the experience that awaits inside of the box. Like for Deliverance, I know the experience that awaits inside the box. You're going to feel like this ridiculously powerful angel that's just about to die. And it's going to be scary the whole time, like as you play. And like every single time you open the box, it's gonna give you that same epic angel knocking down hordes of demons and on the verge of defeat the whole time. So you have to make these razor thin decisions of like, how can I live this one round? Like it looks hopeless, but I see a way through to the next round. And that's the experience that I know is inside the box. But my customers, or rather the backers, are not necessarily going to be convinced by me saying that. They are going to be convinced by, you know, things that I have to write down, that I have to hook. I have to show them the theme. I have to show them the art. I have to show them, I have to explain it quickly in as few words as possible so that they, and then provide other things that only a small percentage of them will want to read. For example, people are really, really passionate about story. Some people, I'm sorry, are very passionate about story. They will read um, everything there is to read in a campaign book, and other people, or like for example, like when you're playing Magic: The Gathering, they're the ones that read the flavor text. That are like interested. They'll look at the art and be like, "Oh, how is this world like? What is this world, right?" And then others are like,
Or the
okay, I
quest dialogue in Warcraft.
yes,
I was skipped.
exactly, dude.
How
Yeah,
many wars do I have to kill?
so funny. I remember I was playing like when I was a kid, I'd play Final Fantasy VII with my friends, and like they would watch me or I would watch them. And when I would play, I would read all the quest text, and it would drive my friends crazy. And then when they would play, they would skip, skip, skip. I'm like, wait, what happened? What happened? And it's really all like kind of meaningless dialogue that it's like, okay, you're in a
World
squat
building. Yeah.
contest, or yeah. So but yeah, so it's a very small percentage of players care a great deal about that. And so you have to include things like that for those players, but then you have to include the game mechanics and how it functionally works for other players. And each element, like that really fits on like in our Kickstarter page design or optimization course. That's really like the different ways that you demonstrate a product help you to stand out on Kickstarter, or they help you to like speak to the right audience. Like if your game is a narrative adventure, then you probably want to appeal to players that are looking to read the narrative, right? And so, like, to be able to communicate clearly, to be able to illustrate what your backers want to know in the shortest possible scrolling, space, how to just make sure, like, when they're convinced, for example, like that your product is interesting, you have to show them a price that matches the value that they had in their head. Um, and so, a lot of other things like that. But I think a lot of things like that are covered in the Kickstarter page optimization course. But to be able to demonstrate your product in each of these areas, I think it's like a puzzle on its own, And so you're going to have groups of of people that are like your target audience, subgroups of people that care about the story, of people that only care about the challenge and the difficulty. Like if I were like I know you're a hardcore gamer. Like you need to make sure that it's challenging, you don't want anybody to spoil the strategy for you. It's like if I were to be like, oh yeah, Sean, you've got to fight this boss. Just make sure to attack it last because of X, Y, and Z. That would actually be frustrating to you, right? Like if I gave you the ideal strategy for how to beat this boss, you would probably delete it from your short-term memory like right away and shun me until you manage to do it yourself, right?
Or find a different way of doing it. So I can come back and say, "Oh, this is how I actually did it." I like finding the obscure strategy of doing things.
Yeah. But then other people, they're like, "Thank you so much for telling me that. Now I get to win." And they don't want to like have challenge. They want to win,
Mm-hmm.
and or they want it to be easy. They want it to feel like, they're having fun and not having to like think too hard or whatever. And so I guess it really depends on your audience. And um so I guess to demonstrate as clearly as possible to like the elements of a good demonstration, maybe I need to know, like you alluded to it earlier, what is it? And like it's a course that unlocks your project, it helps you unlock your project's full potential. Not every project's going to make hundreds of millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars rather, or millions, but whatever amount of money your project could potentially raise, you want to maximize that amount so that it can be the best version of the idea that you had. And so our courses will help you to do that. Is kind of the whole purpose of like that's kind of like the core message. But then like how do I actually demonstrate this? Well, our course is a video course, so I should use video. you know um if you have a product that is a game, show the game being played, in as many ways as possible. Like gifs are very, very good for doing this on a page, right? Like if you have a gif that shows how the game sets up and then how like a quick turn, like you roll the dice and you move your dude and then you knock over an enemy because you attacked him or whatever. um that type of stuff helps people that don't actually have their hands on your product for a physical experience. It helps them to kind of see what it is that they're about to that they're about to buy, or that it helps them actually consider the true meat of the course. Another great way to demonstrate is like give them a digital version to play on like Tabletop Simulator or something. um you can even do this like after your product's released. Like we're about to go from beta to release on boardgamearena.com for Deliverance, and people are going to be able to play Deliverance digitally for free on their browser. um and it's going to be awesome. So it's just another kind of hands-on way that people get to try the game before it actually before they actually have the physical version in their hands. So whatever, I think those are the very common ways um uh, to demonstrate the product. Think like if you go on Shark Tank, you have to be able to demonstrate why your product is awesome and how it works. So how it works and why it's awesome. What is it? How does it work? And why is it awesome? So, um, any other ways you can think of like to demonstrate the actual product? Like what are common ways that you see people demonstrating a product on like a Kickstarter page?
Actually, another way you can demonstrate something is through affiliates. Now, you kind of have this with Kickstarter and GameFound, just with the referral codes. You can kind of get affiliates and you could have agreements with people. But we found when selling our first course, the Facebook ad course, most of our sales came through affiliates. It's because other people were demonstrating, other people saying, "Oh, X, Y, Z about it," and then directing them to the course, and then they were purchasing and converting it. So I think that's a great way as well. As affiliate programs can be very powerful when done right. I think we're very selective of who we consider affiliates. It's got to kind of tick all the boxes where we'll actually have the audience, the reach, that they are appropriate, that there's a sort of overlap of audiences and things, and that they are at least familiar enough with what we do in order to be able to, in good faith, send people our direction. So those are all the things that we seek in affiliates. In fact, we actually have far less affiliates for this round, simply because we wanted to make sure that we hit all those things correctly. I think some people had some of those elements, but didn't have the audience, or vice versa, those types of things. So we have narrowed it down. But I think that's another way of building that social proof, and that is having other people in various degrees saying, "Oh, yeah, check this out." You kind of see this with big Kickstarter projects that eventually become newsworthy. Then you have these kind of big news outlets who then start covering it. It becomes a snowball effect. So that's very important as well.
It's a good point, and it kind of reminds me in a way of going to a convention and showing your product. It's obviously the best way to demonstrate is to get hands-on with players and everything. And there are a lot of different companies that will take your prototype to conventions where you are not and demonstrate for you. I think Indie Game Alliance, and then there's I can't remember what other one, but I can't remember the name. It's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't remember the name. So maybe we'll include it in the show notes. But that's always effective. But yeah, people who are incentivized to do that, Indie Game Alliance or others, you can pay with some money and they'll do that. Or you can have fans go to conventions or on your behalf, which I've done before. Especially after after a crowdfunding event, when people have the game in hand, you can get people to go to conventions on your behalf. It's like a really fantastic way to demonstrate the product. You have a hardcore, super excited fan that's going to share. You can be guaranteed it'll be a good experience for the players at the table. So anyway, it's a bunch of great ideas and examples. Hope you guys leave this podcast understanding how important it is to demonstrate your product and what really why you would do that, like what it means and like why to do it. And in everything that you're doing, thinking about the demonstration of the product and just helping people get a feel for what actually what it will be like when they own this, and is going to really, really help you in your marketing efforts. So
in terms of wrapping up and bringing this to a landing, make sure to go to crowdfundingnerds.com/academy. You can sign up for the course in terms of just getting on our wait list. We will release that, and that's the best way to be notified as soon as it launches and to get the best price. We won't offer this price again. This is literally just the launch price. You can get it at the best price possible.
All right, Robot Richard, send us on out.
Well, that's all the time we have for this week's episode of Crowdfunding Nerds. For more resources, articles, and to listen to past podcasts, please visit us at crowdfundingnerds.com. And if you have a crowdfunding question, we also have a page on our site where you can send a message directly to us. Please visit crowdfundingnerds.com/question. And if your question is a great question, we may include it in a future podcast. Thank you all again for listening to this week's episode, and we'll see you next week. Stay nerdy.